Hi everybody, Stuart here for the Aurora Life channel. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gemstones and the entire process that makes us the type of person that we are. You've heard of the saying that we are all diamonds in the rough. Unfortunately, I completely disagree with that. It's basically like saying that we're on some kind of a standard universal gauge of how much we are worth. In reality, you may be a diamond, but I might be an amethyst, that person might be an emerald. Every single one of us brings value, but the question is how can we bring this value to light? So let's take a look at the entire process. In my explorations, I've gone to places like Yangon, I've gone to Sri Lanka, I've been to America, and I've bought different types of gemstones from all around the world, China, Pakistan, Tibet, Australia, you name it. And what I've discovered is that different types of gemstones go through different forms of mining processes. For example, the key is to be able to identify that plot of land that you might suspect has those gemstones. As you're hunting, you might find surface clues that may give a hint to the secret buried within. For example, quartz may give some indication that there might be gold nearby, especially if you're on a mountainous area. Now, you and I both know that it's no easy task having to excavate huge amounts of land, clearing the dirt, cleaning it up, and therefore the rough, what we really term as gemstone rough, is really virgin gem from the ground. By taking it out and exposing it to the rest of the world, you're basically saying, hey, I found something amazing. This analogy is fantastic because deep inside of yourself, you are going to have to harvest gems from internally. These gems are of different kinds of value. Some of them are amazing things such as your strength and your superpower. Some of them are your weaknesses, the things that you crumble upon and you find that you're really unable to cope with. So you need to be able to take this angle with a little bit of understanding of how gemstones and precious as well as semi-precious gemstones are actually valued. So let's take a look at semi-precious gemstones. For example, citrines, amethyst, they have a very pretty color, but they don't particularly have very much value. Why? Because they're very common and it's so easy to get amethyst for anything between $20 to $200 per kilogram, depending on the grade. Now, of course, if you want to find grades that are really cheap, they have a certain aesthetic value, like a geode or a freestanding crystal, which doesn't have translucency or transparency. That might go for anything between $50 to $100, depending on how large the size of that object is. And you may use it as a paperweight, a decorative sample, whatever. But in order for us to get something powerful, it needs to be unique. And even though it might be really, really common, a large piece of amethyst that is shaped in a particular way, like, for example, it may have a cathedral-like structure, and that might give rise to a higher value because it's a very, very unique piece, not just some piece of amethyst that you find from almost anywhere. The nature of its color also gives you some value as well. So the deeper the purple for an amethyst, the brighter the sun orange in a citrine, the more valued it is. So those are the common semi-precious stones. You'll probably be able to get them in a jeweler's house for something like $200 to $300 if it's very well cut. Now, you'll notice that once you take it out of the ground, it's cheaper because it's in the rough. But you need to clean it and then you'll need to polish it. You'll need to cut it in order to be able to get that fine polish. Of course, that takes a lot of effort. That's the process of adding value. Now, think about it this way. When you are excavating gems of experience from your internal university of life, and you're beginning to reflect, what you're doing is really excavating those gems and saying, yes, I found something. But the next stage of the fact is that you have to begin the cleaning process. Now, that's not so easy to sift out the precious material from the not precious material. That's tough because you need to get your hands dirty. Cleaning it also means that you need to be able to use it as an opportunity to take a look at the gem in the rough. Not all rough stones can be cut into gems. Some of them, as I mentioned, are just specimen grade. But some of them are beautiful, transparent, and you can most definitely cut off the parts that are not so transparent and not so translucent and use the one that has got the richer features. So here's the thing. In, let's say, 10 grams of amethyst, you probably get only about 50% because you're going to have to cut away a lot of things. Now, what does this mean? This means that even the good stuff that you have needs to be, to a certain extent, shaved away in order to make way for a higher value gemstone. Now remember, as you're doing this, the purpose of cutting a gem is so that it can capture the light. I love that metaphor because, after all, when we talk about shadows within our spiritual selves, when we talk about the darkness within, we also want to be able to capture the light. And sure, the experiences in our lives actually can help to capture the light. What we do need, however, is an understanding of the crystal structure. For example, quartz, which is, the different families of prasiolite, the green-colored quartz, amethyst, which is purple-colored, and citrine, which is orange in color. When you start to facet them, you cannot facet them the same way as you'd facet a diamond, because the nature of its critical angle based on its refractive index allows it to capture the light in a very special way. The angle that allows the light to hit onto that gemstone so that the light begins to reflect from internally within that gem itself is very important. As of course, you'll know that diamonds are really, really sparkly because they've got a very high refractive index. To capture the light in a quartz, you need to make sure that your critical angle is much shallower. Now, I'm not going to go into a class on faceting right now because, truth be told, I have yet to facet my own gemstone. But after studying a lot of gemstones, I've realized that the facets characterize our personality, and the way by which we create the right kinds of facets will enable us to bring our personality and our character to life. And as you polish, you come to realize that each of these surfaces requires very, very tender, loving care. You can't add any more pressure because it's no longer in the rough. The more pressure you add on it, the more likely you're going to cause even more of that effect of cutting away. So you want to be able to find the right components in order to create that right shine. And as I said, every single step of the way is constantly adding value. So here's the thing. You may have found that rough 40 years ago. And as you're cleaning, it could have taken 5 to 10 years. And then you start polishing it. You start cutting it. Now, that may take another 5 years. And then over a course of time, you come to realize that you've shaped it to a certain extent, which is now eye-catching, gleaming, and it has got perceived value. Now, at the end of the day, you're going to take that gemstone and you're going to set it on your favorite piece. It could be gold, silver, platinum, whatever. But you're going to set it so well that it's going to be treasured by the person who's bought it. Now, doesn't that sound like life? Every single one of us has got gemstones hidden within, but we have seldom explored. The exploration process requires us to go deep inside of ourselves. I talk about this in our journaling and our discernment work, something which I highly recommend that you go ahead and explore. The next thing is to know our nature, the nature of the rough experiences that we've gotten. We want to be able to bring that out. There's some of them which are easily able to sparkle because they're unique to us. They're beautiful because they bring an emotion, they evoke an emotion in the audience. But some others require a little bit of time to do a little bit more polishing. For example, in my case, one of the things that tends to shine is my call to fame in terms of public speaking. One of the advantages is that story is a story of long-term struggle. So it took a long time to polish, but right now it's a gleaming gem. However, there's some other situations which are not so gleaming. Situations that you and I both went through. Betrayals. Situations where people have turned their back on us. Situations where we fell really, really hard. But you know what that brought me to understand? Is that just because other people don't value the gemstones doesn't mean that I can't find people who do. And more importantly, those are my gemstones. Those are the ones that I must first treasure. Every single step of the way, right from the start, from the mining process, the way you excavate the gems, the way you clean it carefully, the way you transport and store them, the way you facet them, and then the way you polish them, all the way to the place where you set them and the kind of metal that you set it on will make a big difference. After all, this entire process is life itself. You are going to bring life to the very gems of experience that you have gone through only after you've done some serious digging. So dig, don't stop. Yes, you might find some dirt. Yes, you might find some unwanted material. But the truth is that by the time you have arrived at the spot where you dig deep, that's where the precious gemstones are. That's where you will discover more about yourself and the value that you have within. So capture the light. Go out there and let your light shine, because you are a gem waiting to be seen by the rest of the world. So, did you learn anything from that video? If you did, just give it a thumbs up and then click on the subscribe button and hit the notifications icon so that you and I will continue to stay in touch and I can provide you with updates whenever we have new videos.